Jai Guruji. Anantam Shukrana Guruji for this beautiful, blissful, divine satsang. Let's begin with the synopsis of last week. Last week, we read chapter 8 and 9 of KotiRudrasamhita of the volume 3 of the Shivpuran. In this chapter 8, we read about that Sutta narrated the story of, he narrated about the various phallic forms of Lord Shiva in the western quarters on the earth. He specifically narrated about the greatness of the Mahabala form of Lord Shiva, which is at Gokarna. Now, this phallic form was secured by demon Ravana through severe penance, and Lord Shiva, for the welfare of Brahma, Vishnu and other gods, existed in the form of Mahabala, and worshipping this form yields salvation. Even Chandal attained Shivaloka by worshipping this form of Lord Shiva. In next chapter, chapter 9, we read the story of an outcast woman who, this lady was born as a Brahmin girl in a previous lifetime, and she was married young to a youthful Brahmin boy, and she lived a righteous life. But she lost her husband suddenly, and after some time she transgressed her limits of decency, and and once her kinsmen found out about it, they abandoned her far off. Now, one Shudra man noticed her and married her, and after that she started enjoying eating meat, drinking wine, and one such day she was hungry and she went and killed a calf, mistaking it for a goat, and then she repented it, but soon she cooked the calf and relished the meat. Now, life passed and she became old, and when she died, she went to Yamalok. Now, Yama sent her back to earth, and this time she was born in an outcast family. She was born blind to a Chandal woman, and she lost both her parents in infancy. She never got married, and she was inflicted with leprosy, and she became utterly defiled. She passed her life with great difficulty and attained old age. And once she heard that certain travelers were going to Gokarna, and Mahabala. So she decided on a Shiva festival. So she decided that this is a perfect opportunity to beg for clothes and food. So she decided to go to that place. There she started begging, and one of the travelers gave her bilva leaf. Now she was blind, she did not see. So as soon as she ate it, she realized it was not edible. So she just cast it off, and accidentally that fell on the phallic image of Lord Shiva. Also, nobody gave her food, so she fasted all day. So she spent the whole day in disappointment, and next day she went back to her native place. She was utterly exhausted, and she starved and fell unconscious. Then she was taken in an aerial chariot to Shivalok by Shiva's Ganas, because she had performed meritorious deed by fasting, by putting bilva leaves on the phallic image, and thus she attained Shivaloka just unconsciously, without even trying. So just like her, all devotees who do that, who worship the Mahabala image of Lord Shiva, attain salvation. Today we will read chapter 10, which is the greatness and glory of Mahabala, chapter 11, the greatness of the moon-crested Pashupati Natha, and chapter 12, the reasons of Lord Shiva assuming phallic images or phallic forms. Today, Urvashi Aunty will be reading these chapters in English. We do not have Hindi reading. Enjoy the readings for today. And if you're interested in reading the Shivpuran, you could reach out to Seema Aunty, Rashmi Aunty or me, and we could fix up a reading for you. Jai Guruji, Shukrana Guruji.
Jai Guruji, Anantam Shukrana for this divine seva. Chapter 10. The greatness and glory of Mahabala. Sutta said, there was a highly virtuous king, Mitrasha, in the glorious family of Ikshvaku. He was the greatest of skilled archers. The virtuous and auspicious-natured lady, Madhyanti, was his beloved wife. Like Damayanti of Nala, she was known as a chaste lady. Fond of hunting, once that King Mitrasha went to a thick forest accompanied by a huge army. Sporting about there, the king killed a wicked demon, Kamatha, who used to harass good men. The demon's younger brother, a deceitful sinner, thought, I shall conquer him by deceitful means, and with this evil intention approached the king. On seeing him humble in behavior, in seeking service under him, the king made him the chief cook without knowing his real nature. After indulging in hunting sports for some time in the forest, the king abandoned the game and joyously returned to his capital. On the Shraddh day of his father, the king invited his preceptor, Vasishtha, to his palace and fed him devoutly. On seeing the vegetarian and non-vegetarian dish, in which the demon, in the guise of a cook, had mixed human flesh, the preceptor said, O wicked king, fie upon you! Human flesh has been deceitfully offered to me by you. Hence, you will become a demon. On realizing that it had been perpetrated by the demon, the preceptor pondered over and prescribed a time limit of 12 years for the curse. Thinking that the curse was unjustified, the infuriated king was about to return the curse with a handful of water. Then the chaste and virtuous queen, Madhyanti, fell at his feet and entreated him to spare the curse. Out of deference for her entreaties, the king desisted from cursing, but dropped the handful of water on his own feet, which became deformed. O great sages, from that day onwards the king became famous in the world as Kalma Sangari by the virtue of that water. By the curse of his preceptor, the leading sage, the king Mitrasha became a terrible, violent Rakshasa roaming in the forest. Transformed as Rakshasa and resembling Yama, the destroyer of the world, he roamed about in the forest, devouring various living beings, men and others. Once, somewhere in the forest, the king, who was as hideous as the god of death, saw a newly married couple, a young sage and his young wife, indulging in sexual dalliance. The demon, habituated to eat human flesh in his distressed state due to the curse, caught hold of the young sage in order to eat him like a tiger seizing a fawn. The young woman, on seeing her husband seized by the demon, was much frightened and implored him with piteous cries. In spite of repeated importunities, the man-eating, ruthless, wicked demon cut off the head of the Brahmin sage and devoured it. The distressed, grief-stricken, chaste lady lamented much. She gathered the bones of her husband and lighted a funeral pyre. The Brahmin lady, desirous of entering the pyre in order to follow her husband, cursed the Rakshasa king. The chaste lady entered fire, after proclaiming, "From now onwards, if you become united with any woman in sexual embrace, you will die." After undergoing the results of his preceptor's curse, to which there was a time limit, the king regained his original form and joyously returned to his palace. Madhyanti, who knew of the curse of the chaste Brahmin lady, prevented her husband, who evinced a desire for sexual embrace. She was much frightened of widowhood. The issueless king became disgusted with kingly pleasures. Eschewing all riches, he went to the forest. He saw the hideous form of Brahmahatya closely following him, threatening him again and tormenting him. Dejected in mind, the king wanted to get rid of Brahmahatya. He tried japas, holy rites, sacrifices, and various other means. O Brahmins, when Brahmahatya did not leave him, in spite of the means like the ceremonial ablution in the holy centers, the king went to Mithila. Distressed and worried by anxiety, the king reached a park at the outskirts of the city. There he saw the sage Gautama approaching him. The king advanced towards the sage of pure mind. He felt satiated on seeing him. He bowed to him again and again. When the sage inquired of his welfare, the king heaved a sigh of grief and distress. Viewed mercifully by him, the king felt pleased and contented. He said thus. The king said, "O sage, this endless Brahmahatya harasses me. O dear, it is imperceptible to others, but it threatens me at every step. A Brahmin boy had been devoured by me in the clutches of a curse. That sin cannot be suppressed even by thousands of expiatory rites. O sage, I roamed here and there and tried various means to quell it, but it did not leave me off. Is it not due to my being a sinning soul? Now it seems to me that I have attained the fruits of my birth, because merely by your sight my heart is filled with bliss. O fortunate one, I, the sinner, seek refuge in your lotus-like feet. Grant me peace, whereby I can be happy." Suta said, implored thus by the king, the kind-hearted Gautama instructed him in the expiatory means for terrible sins. Gautama said, "O excellent king, well done, you are blessed. Eschew all fear from sins. As long as Shiva is the ruler, there can be no terror to devotees who seek refuge in him. O fortunate king, listen. There is another shrine, well consecrated. There is a Shiva's temple named Gokarna. It destroys all great sins. Sins greater than the greatest cannot stay there. Shiva himself is present there in the name of Mahabala. Mahabala is the emperor of all phallic images. It assumes 4 different colors in the 4 yugas. It dispels all sins. The excellent holy center of Gokarna is on the shore of Western Ocean. There is a phallic image of Shiva, destructive of great sins. Great sinners go there, take their ceremonial ablutions many times in the sacred waters, and worship Mahabala. They have all attained Shiva's region. O king, you also go to Gokarna, the temple of Shiva. After going there and worshipping Shiva, attain contentment. Take your holy dip in the sacred waters there. Worship Mahabala. Thus, you will be rid of sins and attain Shivaloka." Suta said, advised thus by the noble-souled Gautama, the king, highly delighted in the mind, reached Gokarna. He took his dip in the holy ponds and worshipped Mahabala. His sins were wiped off without the least vestige. He attained the great region of Shiva. He who listens to this pleasing narrative of Mahabala goes to Shivaloka along with the members of his family up to 21 generations. Thus, the extremely wonderful glory of Mahabala, the phallic image of Shiva, has been narrated to you. It dispels all sins. Chapter 11. The greatness of the moon-crested Pashupati-Natha. The sages said, O Suta, O fortunate Suta, you are blessed with your mind attached to Shiva. This wonderful story of Mahabala has been narrated to you. Please narrate the sacred glory of the sin-destroying phallic images that are in the northern quarter. Suta said, O Brahmins, listen with respect. I shall succinctly explain the particular glory of the northern phallic images of Shiva. There is another shrine, Gokarna, destructive of great sins. There is an extensive holy forest there. The moon-crested Shiva's phallic image, excellent of all, is situated there. It was installed by Ravana with great devotion, and it confers all accomplishments. O great sages, its situation there is for the benefit of the people, as that of Vaidyanatha, the ocean of mercy. Taking the ceremonial ablution in Gokarna and worshipping the moon-crested Shiva, the devotee attains Shivaloka. True, it is true undoubtedly. It is impossible to describe in detail the excessively wonderful glory of the moon-crested Lord Shiva, who has a great affection for his devotees. Somehow the extreme grandeur of the phallic Shiva has been explained to you. Now listen to that of the other phallic image. In the excellent holy center of the sage Mishra, the phallic image of Shiva had been installed by the great sage Dadiji. After going there and taking the due ceremonial ablution in the sacred pond, the devotee shall worship this image reverentially. The ideal of Dadiji should be duly worshipped for the propitiation of Shiva by those who seek the fruit of the pilgrimage. O excellent sages, if this is duly performed, the devotee will feel contented. After enjoying all pleasures here, he will attain the supreme goal hereafter. The phallic image of Shiva, known as Rishishvara, installed by the sages in the holy center of Naimisha forest, yields happiness. O great sages, enjoyment of worldly pleasures and salvation here and hereafter will fall to the lot of even sinful persons who visit and worship it. The phallic image, destructive of sins in the holy center of Hatya Harana, should be particularly worshipped. It destroys even the sins of several slaughters. Laliteshvara, the phallic image of Shiva in the holy center Devaprayaga, should be worshipped by men. It is destructive of all sins. The phallic image Pashupatisha in the Nepala town, famous on the earth, is the bestower of the fruits of all desires. That phallic image is in the form of the crest. I shall narrate the story in the description of Kedareshvara. Close to it lies the wonderful phallic image Muktinatha. Its very sight and worship bestows worldly enjoyment here and liberation hereafter. O great sages, the excellent phallic images in the four quarters have been thus described to you all. What else do you wish to hear? Chapter 12. The reason for Shiva's assuming the phallic form. The sages said, O Suta, you know everything by the grace of Vyasa. There is nothing not known to you. Hence we approach you with a query. The phallic form of Shiva is worshipped throughout the world. You have said so. Is there any special reason for the same? Parvati, the beloved of Shiva, is heard in the world in the form of an arrow. O Suta, what is the reason for this? Please satisfy our curiosity in this respect by giving the account you have heard. Suta said, O Brahmins, the story of a different kalpa was heard from Vyasa by me. O excellent sages, I shall narrate the same. Please listen. What happened formerly among the Brahmins in the Daruvana forest may kindly be heard. I shall narrate the same in the manner I have heard. There is an excellent forest, Daruvana. There were many excellent sages there, great devotees of Shiva, who were always engrossed in meditation on Shiva. O great sages, they performed the worship of Shiva incessantly, thrice a day. They eulogized Shiva with different devotional hymns. Once, the leading Brahmin devotees of Shiva, engrossed in the meditation of Shiva, went into the forest for bringing sacrificial twigs. In the meantime, Shiva, himself assuming a very hideous form, came there in order to test their devotion. He was very brilliant, but stark naked. He had smeared ashes all over his body as the sole ornament. Standing there and holding his penis, he began to show all sorts of vicious tricks. It was with the mind to do something pleasing to the forest dwellers that Shiva, favorite of the devotees, came to the forest at his will. The wives of the sages were extremely frightened at this sight. The other women, excited and surprised, approached the Lord. Some embraced him, others held his hands. The women were engrossed in struggling with one another. Meanwhile, the great sages came there. On seeing him engaged in perverse activities, they were pained and infuriated. The sages, deluded by Shiva's Maya and plunged in grief, began to say, "Who is this? Who is this?" When the naked sage did not reply, the great sages told that terrible Purusha, "You are acting pervertedly. This violates the Vedic path. Hence let your penis fall on the ground." Suta said, "When they said thus, the penis of that Avadhuta, who was Shiva of wonderful form, fell down instantly. That penis burnt everything in front. Wherever it went, it began to burn everything there. It went to Patala, it went to heaven, it went all over the earth. It never remained steady anywhere. All the worlds and the people were distressed. The sages became grief-stricken. Whether gods or sages, no one had any peace or joy. All the gods and sages who did not recognize Shiva became sad. They assembled together and hastened to Brahma and sought refuge in him. O Brahmins, after going there, they bowed to and eulogized Brahma. They narrated what had happened to Brahma, the creator. Brahma heard them. He realized that they had been deluded by Shiva's Maya. After bowing to Shiva, he told the excellent sages. Brahma said, "O Brahmins, you though wise do such despicable things, then why complain against the ignorant who act likewise? Who can wish for happiness after offending and antagonizing Shiva thus? If a person does not welcome and serve a guest at midday, his virtue is taken away by the guest, who in return deposits his sin in him. What then of Shiva himself as a guest? As long as the penis does not become stationary, there cannot be anything good in the three worlds. I am telling you the truth. O sages, you must do such things as will make the penis of Shiva steady. Please ponder over this in your minds." Suta said, "Thus urged, the sages bowed to Brahma and said, O Brahma, what shall be done by us? Please guide us in that task." When the great sages asked him thus, Brahma, the grandfather of the worlds, spoke to them. Brahma said, "Let the gods propitiate goddess Parvati and pray. If she can assume the form of the vaginal passage, that penis will become steady. O excellent sages, listen. I shall tell you the mode of procedure. Act accordingly with love and devotion. She will be thus pleased. Make an 8-petaled mystic diagram of lotus and place a pot over it. Water from holy centers shall be poured into the pot, along with the sprouts of durva and barley. The pot shall be invoked with Vedic mantras. It shall be worshipped according to the Vedic rituals after remembering Shiva. The penis shall be drenched with that water, O great sages. When the sprinkling is made with Satarudriya mantras, it will become stable. Parvati, in the form of the vaginal passage and an auspicious arrow, shall form as the pedestal, wherein the phallus shall be installed, in accompaniment of the Vedic mantras. Lord Shiva shall be propitiated with the offerings of sweet scents, sandal paste, fragrant flowers, incense, and other things, as well as by food offerings and other forms of worship. With prostrations, holy hymns, musical instruments, and songs, he shall be propitiated further. Swasthayana mantras shall be repeated, and the devotees shall proclaim the victory of the Lord. The following prayer shall be recited. O Lord of the gods, be pleased. O delighter of the universe, you are the creator, protector, and the annihilator. You are imperishable. You are the beginning of the universe, the origin of the universe, within the universe. O Lord Shiva, be quiet. Protect all the worlds. If this is performed, there will be stability, to be sure. There will not be any aberration in the three worlds. there will be happiness always. Suta said, O Brahmins, thus advised, the gods bowed to Brahma and then sought refuge in Shiva with the desire for the happiness of the worlds. When worshipped with great devotion and implored, Lord Shiva became delighted and spoke to them. Lord Shiva said, O gods, O sages, you listen to my words with reverence. If my penis is supported in a vaginal passage, there will be happiness. Except Parvati, no other woman can hold my penis. Held by her, my penis will immediately become quiet. Suta said, O great sages, on hearing those words, the delighted sages and the gods took Brahma with them and prayed to Parvati. After propitiating Parvati and the bull-bannered Lord and performing the rites mentioned before, the excellent penis became static. The gods and the sages propitiated Parvati and Shiva by the mode of procedure laid down in the Vedas for the sake of virtue. Brahma, Vishnu and other gods, sages and the three worlds, including the mobile and immobile beings, worshipped Shiva particularly. Shiva became delighted, and so also Parvati, the mother of the universe. That phallus was held by her in that form then. When the phallus was stabilized, there was welfare throughout the worlds. O Brahmins, that phallus became famous in the three worlds. The phallus is known as Hatesha as well as Shiva Shiva. By worshipping it, all the people became happy in every respect. Here everything will flourish in plenty, conferring supreme happiness and bliss. Hereafter it will bestow final liberation. No doubt need to be entertained in this respect. With this, I conclude chapter 12 and tonight's reading. Thank you. Jai Guruji. Shukrana. अब हम गुरुजी से आज्ञा लेंगे. जय गुरुजी.